Okay, hands up, who's tried to book a staycation in the UK this year? So that's me. Now it's quite hard, isn't it, unless you'd booked up several months ago. Everything looks like it's pretty booked up over the summer. And also, hands up, who misses lockdown traffic on the roads? That's me again. I mean, the roads were really empty, but the other weekend I spent 5.5 hours getting from the Midlands to the Lake District. So of course, I can't see your answers. This is a streamed event. But also, we know that we can't rely on our own instincts to say, yes, more people are in the UK and more people are travelling by car. So we have done some research that looks into radio and the road ahead over the summer. So it's fair to say that people are keen to get out and live a little bit like they did pre-COVID times. And at Radio Centre, we've been doing quite a lot of research over the last year through the pandemic of sort of attitudes and behaviours of commercial radio listeners, but also how much they are listening to radio. So this is actually our 6th study that we've done, and the most recent one before that was how radio connects with the working from home audience, and all of them are available on Radio Centre's website. This is the commercial audio split. So this looks at streaming services, live radio and podcasts that you can advertise on. And as you will see, 83% of the total listening is commercial radio. Now, if you were surprised by how big it is, you're not alone, because in our Re-evaluating Media for Recovery study, we are senior decision makers at agencies and on the client side as well, what they thought the split was. And as you will see from this chart, they thought live radio was around 58%, podcasts were around 16%, and streaming services were 26%. So that is the current market there. Live radio dominates. And over the last year, because we have not had any radar data, we've been looking at and asking commercial radio listeners about their own listening habits. And we've seen that people consistently tune into their radio more. And actually, this is an established pattern now. Even as we come out and more restrictions are lifted, people are listening for an average of 1 hour, 38 minutes extra a day. Now, one of the places that we do know that people like to listen to the radio is in their cars. It keeps you company on those long journeys or even on short journeys when you're commuting to work. And according to IPA Touchpoints data, around 13 million of us are tuning into commercial radio every day in our cars. So this study shows that we've done here, Radio and the Road to Recovery, shows that consumer confidence is returning. And as the vaccine rolls out, confidence is high that all pre-COVID activities will resume in the near future, with 62% of adults believing that they will return to normality soon. So how does this confidence translate into spending intentions at a time where people are emerging from financially uncertain times? Well, as Andy Haldane from the Bank of England explains, he believes that socialising and spending will return to normal very quickly once the final restrictions are lifted. And he says it's for 2 reasons. One is household finances will be in a pretty good shape, but also psychology. People really actually want to go back to normal. They are now fed up of lockdown. And actually, this research done for us by DRG does back Andy up. So radio listeners' security, fears around job security have lessened in time. So only 21% of listeners are agreeing that they're worried about their finances. Now, this is down 10% from last August when it was 31%. And what is interesting is that almost half of commercial radio listeners have managed to save money since the pandemic started. This could be a very positive sign for retail and other services as people begin to resume normal working life. In fact, actually 3/4 of commercial radio listeners said that they either felt better off financially or that there'd been no change. So again, a really positive sign for when we open up. So they have this money burning a hole in their pockets. What are they going to do? How's it going to impact on spending? Well, it seems that the high street is probably the most likely place where it's going to benefit first. 3 out of 5 people are actively looking forward to returning to the high street. And perhaps a byproduct of spending more time in your local area, people are keen to support local businesses, and actually more so amongst commercial radio listeners than non-listeners. So what have people been looking forward to spending their money on? So this chart tells us that they've been keen to spend money on socialising, most notably in restaurants and bars, and travel. Now, in terms of travel, they are anticipating spending money on domestic trips. And although some are determined to remain optimistic about the idea of international travel. Now, I am one of them. I am holding holidays, hoping that I will be able to go. But, you know, given the news about the beginning of this month about Portugal going from, you know, green to amber, perhaps a lot of people are putting their money on booking travel for next year. Now, I do look at this in a little bit more in depth in a minute, but actually people may be feeling a little bit unsure about using public transport, but they also may be planning to go away in the summer. They've saved money during lockdown. They're a lot better off, and they are looking at buying a new car to help them get around. And actually, commercial radio listeners are 62% more likely to purchase a new car in the near future. So as I've already discussed, people in the UK are planning pre-COVID levels of activities as well, as much as they can over the summer. And this figure is backed up by figures from Visit Britain, which anticipates that over 51 billion will be spent on domestic tourism this year. Now, this is a 51% increase on 2020. So although obviously we have to account for the fact that we were a country in lockdown at the time, it still shows that Britain is booming in terms of staying in the UK and spending our money in the UK. And for people who are suspicious that the government are trying to keep us in the UK in order to spend money, these figures kind of look good for the government as well. And despite staying in the UK only being one option for people, they are really looking forward to getting out and about and spending time in the UK, visiting friends, going on days out, and generally exploring what the UK has to offer. So as I alluded to in the last, early on in the presentation, people are a little bit nervous about using public transport. And so with many of the activities they're planning to travel, they will be using the car because they feel nervous about using public transport, and many of them agreeing that they will avoid it in many circumstances. So it's really no surprise that 61% of adults and actually 63% of commercial radio listeners will take their car on their journeys whenever they can. And although car use amongst those has been strong during previous months, it's not expected to decrease as the UK comes out of lockdown. And actually, commercial radio listeners believe that they will be using their cars more and more in the coming months over the summer. So what will they be using the car for? So we asked them, beyond the daily commute, what sort of activities they would be getting in their car to go to. And actually, those measured anticipated growth in use for staycations, days out, family visits and leisure. And notably, this was far more so amongst the commercial radio listeners. People also believe that they will use their car when it comes to dining activities, and especially if you're travelling to restaurants, they will go by car. And a third of commercial radio listeners believe that they will use their car more for non-grocery retail purposes. So, how is this going to impact on commercial radio, and what does it mean for brands? So we've also seen a growth in commercial radio in-car listening. As consumers head out more on their journeys for enjoyable and exciting activities, they're choosing to tune into their commercial radio station to keep them company along the way. And as we know, people are anticipating spending more time in their car, but also this research backs up the sort of attributes of radio advertising, and notably as a way to find out new information on new products and services, but also as a tool to drive search and ignite ideas. Now, if you don't think these numbers are impressive, it is probably worth me saying that most people will never admit to being influenced in advertising. So actually these figures are very, very strong to show that people are accepting of commercial radio advertising, and actually that they find it useful. So that's about it from me, but just to sum up, to say that people are really eager to get out and about in the UK and spend their money. They also really want to support local businesses, more so commercial radio listeners. This is probably because we have all spent a lot more time in our local area during lockdown, but there does remain some concerns around public transport, about people feeling safe on it. So the car is probably the best option for many people to get out and about in. Commercial radio's listeners tuning in during car journeys are really receptive to advertising, and they can be reached at a time when they're in a positive mindset, heading out for enjoyable activities. And motoring is on the minds of commercial radio listeners, with many planning to make a car-related purchase in the coming months. So 2021 is set to see a summer of car journeys and increased spending, and radio advertising will offer advertisers more opportunities to connect. Thank you.